I nursed my husband's father through his stroke, bathed him, fed him, while my husband was out drinking. One night he slurred. "You think you're one of us? You're just a hired maid with a ring." The next morning, my sister-in-law screamed at me for touching their family's business. Then my husband said, "If you don't like it, you know where the door is." I took off my gloves, walked out, and a week later, 2 days after I filed, Denise called me. She left a voicemail, her voice cracking, fake sweet. "Hey, Hannah. So, I think there's been a huge misunderstanding, and maybe we could just talk? It's been really tense, and I'm sure none of this was intentional. Call me back." Intentional? She stood in my kitchen and called me a tenant. Like I was squatting in a life I built for her father, her brother, her whole damn bloodline. Now she wanted to talk? I didn't call her back. The very next day, Daryl tried texting me. "You really gonna make this legal? You're acting insane. Don't do something you can't walk back from." I ignored him. Then came the knock. It was a Friday. Margot had just gone to work. I was alone at her place, sitting on the couch in sweats with my laptop, working remotely, headphones in. I saw the car through the blinds before I heard the doorbell. Black BMW. Denise's. I opened the door halfway, left the chain on. She smiled. That fake kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Hannah, come on," she said. "We don't need to make this ugly. You already did." She took a breath. "Dad's health is getting worse. He misses you." I almost laughed. "You mean, his unpaid nurse quit? And now nobody wants to clean his bedpans? Don't be dramatic." "No. You don't get to say that anymore." She looked around, lowering her voice. "Do you really want this dragging our name through the courts?" I looked her dead in the eye. "I do." She flinched. "You thought I was weak," I said. "But I was just loyal. Now I'm either." I shut the door in her face. That night Daryl sent another text. "You want to burn this house down? You go right ahead. But remember, we still got that mortgage together. You screw me, you screw yourself." What he didn't know. I'd already talked to a forensic accountant. And I wasn't just filing a labor suit, I was pulling receipts on Kerrigan Hardware's payroll. Daryl hadn't been working full-time for years. The business was paying him under the table, consulting fees, while I covered groceries. I'd helped file their damn taxes once. I remembered the deductions, the weird ones. I remembered the cash deposits. I had photocopies. PDFs, time-stamped. The accountant said, "You have something here. If we dig deeper, there's a pattern of misuse." The same week, Howard had a fall. Denise had to call 911. No one was there to lift him. The home nurse had gone home. Daryl was out, again. I heard about it through the grapevine. My friend, Margot, works with a woman whose cousin is a paramedic. Small-town news travels fast. They'd found him in his own urine, dehydrated. Apparently, he kept mumbling, "Where's the nurse?" over and over again. That was me. I didn't go back. Not once. Instead, I made my next move. My attorney, Vanessa, sharp as a blade, filed a petition for compensatory back pay for over 2,000 hours of unpaid elder care labor. We attached the text messages from Daryl that hinted I had volunteered. His exact words. "You work from home anyway. Best fit. Just help till we figure it out." That wasn't volunteering. That was coercion. We filed a report with the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. I told them everything: the lack of licensed care, the neglect, the verbal abuse, the refusal to pay, the emotional pressure. 2 weeks later, I got a notice: Kerrigan Hardware was under investigation. Daryl's personal income was flagged. So were Denise's. Consulting checks. Turns out, she'd been writing herself community support stipends from the business, claiming to help her father full-time. Meanwhile, I had footage, timestamps from our home security camera, showing she was barely at the house for 15 minutes a week. Vanessa smiled when she saw it. "They used you like free labor and thought you'd roll over." "No," I said. "I just needed time to remember who I was." 3 days later, Daryl served me with divorce papers. Fine. He thought he'd beat me to it. But I'd already filed a marital asset protection order, froze our joint property, and requested full audit of the family business assets. And that's when the real twist came. Because guess who the business was still partially under? Howard's wife, Daryl's mother, had never been removed from the ownership file. Legally, her portion had never been transferred. Which meant part of the business was still in probate. And guess who handled most of her estate paperwork years ago when they were too busy? Me. I had access. I had files. And I had leverage. The probate detail cracked everything wide open. See, when Howard's wife died, the Kerrigans were sloppy. They didn't file half the paperwork properly. There were handwritten notes. A half-done will. Old titles. No official asset division. They thought since it was a family business, things could be handled in-house. And like always, they threw the grunt work on whoever was closest. Back then, that was me. I'd filled out paperwork. Mailed documents. I had the login credentials to their old estate management software still saved on my backup drive. I found emails where Denise wrote me, "Can you just finish this part? You're better at it." So I did. And I had kept copies. Old school. Printed. Labeled. Stored in a bin under our guest bed. When I left the house, I took that bin with me. Daryl thought I packed light. I didn't. I packed smart. My lawyer brought in an estate litigation specialist. After a week of combing through the documents, she looked at me and said, "They never closed the estate. Technically, there's no proof Howard ever gained full ownership of his wife's share of the business. That's an open door." "So what does that mean?" I asked. "It means we can challenge ownership. If we show financial abuse or coercion during the care period, we can file a petition to reallocate business interest. You could gain standing." I didn't know the legal lingo, but I understood one thing loud and clear: they'd messed with the wrong person. Then came the smear campaign. Denise started posting on Facebook about how I abandoned a sick man who loved me like a daughter. She made herself the hero. She shared photos of Howard smiling, ones I took. Said I was trying to steal from a dying man. But what she didn't know: I had videos. I had timestamps. I had records of him saying things like, "You're just the maid." I had receipts of Denise getting reimbursed for care hours she never worked. Then Daryl went nuclear. He filed a protective order against me, claiming I was harassing the family and threatening to ruin their livelihood. I hadn't even spoken to them since I walked out. My lawyer responded with everything we had. Court documents. Screenshots. Medical supply orders on my card. Surveillance footage. Notes from Howard's nurses. Even emails from Denise where she said, "You're a godsend. We don't know what we'd do without you." That protective order? Dismissed. With prejudice. Here's the next twist. Turns out Kerrigan Hardware was broke. Deep in debt. They had kept it quiet. Used fake write-offs, short-term loans, vendor favors. Daryl had been using business cards for personal expenses. Liquor stores, hotel rooms, casino withdrawals up in Cherokee. Once the auditors came in, everything spilled. By the time I saw the financial report, I almost pitied them. Almost. Because you know what else they found? My name, on a personal loan. Daryl had taken out a $15,000 loan using my name as a co-signer without telling me. He forged the signature. It was from the credit union where his cousin worked. They thought no one would check. So now, it wasn't just family court or elder care. It was fraud. And I had evidence. We handed it all over. I filed police reports. I filed civil claims. I filed identity theft complaints. And when the sheriff's office finally opened an investigation, guess whose name was at the top of the report? Daryl E. Kerrigan. At this point, it wasn't about money. It was about truth. It was about not letting people like this keep getting away with ruining good people. They wanted a maid. A nurse. A scapegoat. Instead, they got an enemy with a spine. And I wasn't done. Because Howard was still alive. And I still had one last card to play. Howard was still alive. Barely. The stroke had taken most of him. His speech was worse. His hands curled in tight fists most days. But he could still blink. He could still grunt. He could still watch daytime TV and bark at aides when they got his food wrong. He'd been moved to a care home, some second-rate place on the edge of town. Denise couldn't handle it, and Daryl? He didn't even visit. But me? I showed up. Not out of guilt. Not out of pity. I needed him to see what was coming. I walked in one afternoon, right after his third fall in a month. His nurse said he'd been more agitated lately, spitting food, refusing baths, crying during the night. I sat next to him in that cracked vinyl chair, right across from his hospital bed. The TV was on mute. Some cop show. He blinked at me, then turned his eyes away. "I'm not here for forgiveness," I said. "I'm not here to clean your wounds." He didn't move. "I'm here because you need to hear this. You did this. You raised them to believe women are tools. You made your son think using me was a right. You made your daughter believe being cruel made her strong. You broke your wife's spirit, You spent your family's money, and you let me carry your rot for free. He let out a soft grunt, eyes narrowing. They're losing the business, I said quietly. The IRS is coming. Your assets are frozen. Daryl's under criminal investigation for identity theft. Denise? Fined $42,000 for Medicaid fraud. His lips moved slightly, maybe trying to speak. Nothing came out. By the time I'm done, I said, Kerrigan Hardware will be shut down. Your name will mean nothing but debt. And just so we're clear, this wasn't revenge. This was justice. Then I stood, looked him dead in the eye, and walked out. 3 weeks later the Kerrigans lost their appeal. The courts ruled in my favor. I was awarded $137,000 in back labor, damages, and elder care reimbursement. Denise tried to claim I fabricated records. The judge asked her how I fabricated her own emails. She couldn't answer. The hardware stores were seized for back taxes. The signage was stripped down by county order. Liquidation auctions were posted in the newspaper. I showed up to one. Wore a blue dress. Bid on their old POS system just for fun. Won it for $23. Gave it to a junk collector. Daryl was arrested 2 months later. Fraud. Forgery. Misuse of marital information. Turned out he'd done it before, with a former girlfriend back in his early 20s. She never pressed charges. I did. He spent 9 months in county jail. Got out on probation, but he was broke. Jobless. Blacklisted in retail. He moved in with a buddy in Gastonia. Last I heard, he was delivering pizzas. Denise lost her kids in a custody battle to her ex-husband after the Medicaid fraud charges became public. CPS got involved. Her church shunned her. The private school her kids went to pulled their scholarships. She had to move in with their mom's sister in Concord. Irony. Howard died 6 months later. Alone. In that same care home. No funeral. No obituary. His body was cremated, paid for by county aid. I didn't send flowers. I didn't even blink when I heard. I took my money and moved out of North Carolina. Rented a small apartment in Asheville first. Then bought a fixer-upper in Boone. Fresh air. Mountains. A little garden. No ghosts. I work part-time now. Still in medical billing, but mostly freelance. I help other women who've been trapped in family care situations. I tell them how to keep records. How to speak up. How to plan exits. Sometimes I think about that house. That ring. The way Daryl used to smirk and say, "You're lucky to be a Kerrigan." No. They were lucky to have me. And they'll never be that lucky again.